to our lecture on fundamental principles of communication. Interpersonal communication is like a Swiss Army knife. It's versatile and it serves many purposes in relationships. It's not just about exchanging words, it's about how those words shape our connections with others. Researchers have identified five key principles that highlight what makes interpersonal communication special. First, there's the origin of the message. Where do our messages come from? And what do they convey to us about our relationship? Then there's the impact of those messages. How do they affect our relationship and the people we're communicating with? Another important principle is the changing nature of interpersonal communication. It's not a static process. It evolves over time as relationships develop and grow. These principles help us understand how complexities and importance of interpersonal communication in our lives. Principle number one, interpersonal messages are omnipresent. In his earlier work, scholar Paul Watzlawick made a famous observation. People are always communicating, whether they intend to or not. He highlights how messages are perceived regardless of the sender's intent. When we receive a message, we tend to interpret it ourselves. This shows that communication is everywhere. From carefully planned speeches to accidental behaviors, they still convey a message. This constant communication can complicate interpersonal relationships with each other. People might interpret each other's behaviors, intentional or not, and make assumptions based on what they see. These little things that people do. For example, let's say that Jason and Anthony are coworkers who often collaborate on projects together. One day they're working on a presentation together, and Jason suggests a new idea for a slide layout. Anthony, who's focused on other tasks at the moment, sort of absentmindedly nods in agreement without fully understanding Jason's idea. Later during the presentation rehearsal, Jason noticed that Anthony has implemented a completely different layout, which is not what Jason had in mind. Jason starts to feel frustrated and misunderstood, wondering why Anthony didn't follow his suggestion. Anthony, on the other hand, is confused by Jason's reaction as he thought he was the one on the right track based on their earlier interaction. The situation illustrates how unintentional messages, in this case, Anthony's unintentional agreement to Jason's suggestion, can lead to misunderstandings. These misunderstandings can impact their working relationship. It highlights the importance of clear and effective communication, even in seemingly minor interactions, to avoid such misunderstandings. People send us messages for various reasons, and understanding their motivations can help us navigate our interactions better. So, precise language is important. Body language is important. A person, again, may unintentionally convey discomfort or disinterest through their body language. So, avoiding eye contact, crossing your arms, fidgeting, this can all lead to a misunderstanding if the receiver misinterprets these cues as being directed at them. Another is tone of voice. The tone in which a message is delivered can change its meaning. So, for example, a person may unintentionally sound sarcastic or condescending, leading to a misunderstanding about their true intent. Timing is another one. Communication can be unintentionally ineffective and it occurs in an inappropriate time. For instance, delivering bad news to someone who is already stressed out or upset may lead to an even stronger negative reaction. There's also cultural differences. People from different cultures may unintentionally offend each other due to differences in communication styles, gestures, or even norms. Another is assumptions. Making assumptions about what other people know or understand can really lead to miscommunication. So, for example, assuming that someone is unaware of a particular policy or procedure without explicitly stating it can really lead to confusion. Principle number two is interpersonal messages follow rules. People not only constantly send and receive messages, but they also do so following cultural rules. From a young age, we learn these rules, which are very based on our culture and our upbringing. Understanding these rules is key to being competent in communication. But what's considered competent can vary widely based on different cultures. When I was in college, I was in a relationship with someone from a different country. I had traveled with them many times to their country a few times and saw how the family interacted. The family interacted differently in that country and in that culture than I did with my family. Everyone would come up and kiss each other on the cheeks, not something we did in my family or my culture. So it was a little different, um, a little sort of set off, right? Not weird, but just like different for me. So you're like, wait a second, how do we sort of navigate the waters a little bit better here? So absolutely, that can cause some chaos. Principle number three is interpersonal messages contain both substance and nuisance. So communication isn't just about following rules, it's about the message themselves. There's some researchers have sort of pioneered in this area and highlighted that every message has two aspects: the content and the rationale aspect behind it. Think of it like this. When you're talking to someone, the words you use to convey the content or the context is what you're actually saying, the words that are being said. But there's a rational aspect, which is about the nature of the relationship with the person. So, for example, discussing a sensitive topic, a couple discussing a sensitive topic, such as their future together or a past disagreement, the conversation involves sharing deep emotions and thought. That's the substance, but also requires careful navigation of each other's feelings and their perspective, the nuisance. To ensure that this discussion remains constructive and respectful. So every single message contains not just the words, but the context and the relationship between the sender and the receiver. Principle number four, interpersonal messages permanently impact relationships. Let's talk about something really important: the impact of interpersonal communication on relationships and how once a message is out there, it can't be taken back. You know these moments in romantic movies where one line changes everything between the main characters? It's like that in real life as well. Whether it's saying, I don't like you anymore, I found someone else, or even just a certain look, these messages can have a huge impact on our relationships. They can change the course of a relationship for better or for worse. And once they're out there, you cannot take them back. So it's important to think about the words we use and the messages that we send because they can have a lasting impact on our relationships. Principle number five, interpersonal messages vary widely. The last principle is all about how the message can be interpreted differently and how they can change over time. Have you ever in said something to someone and had it completely misunderstood? It happens more often than we think. Text messages are the number one culprit of this. So imagine Sarah sends a text message to her friend Jack saying, I'm fine. Sarah intends this message to mean that she's doing well, everything is fine. However, Jack interprets it as Sarah being upset or bothered by something. This misunderstanding arises because text message lack tone, lacks facial expressions, and makes it very easy for messages to be misrepresented. It can also change relationship dynamics. As relationships evolve over time, the interpretation of interpersonal messages can change. For example, in the early stages of a friendship, a playful teasing remark may be interpreted as lighthearted banter. However, as the relationship deepens, the same remark may be perceived as hurtful or offensive, indicating a shift in the relationship dynamic. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you so much.